Teenage boys behaving badly. Apples, tires, and a valedictorian. An irony. It was 1969. I was a senior in high school. My friends and I had just learned the definition of the word irony. Irony, a lot of people don't use that word correctly. It means you have a condition of irony when the surface meaning is not the real meaning. For example, look at this guy. He's trained his entire life to be a track star. He's a sprinter. He's an Olympic level sprinter. He actually gets to the Olympics. He's in the big final race and he wins. He wins. And then he has a massive heart attack and drops down dead. It seemed he was running towards victory, but ironically, he was running towards death. Brain development. People talk about this. Brain development in guys, boys. The frontal lobe takes forever to develop. So the ability of young men to think and have good judgment, it doesn't develop very quickly. I had three friends when I was in high school, and they were my friends from the seventh grade. One of my friends, he was the best looking, named Jack. And here you see him, he was athletic and kind of good looking, and girls liked him. And normally he would have been an athlete, and he would have wound up wearing one of these leather jackets, I'm sure. But he had a problem, and the problem was his church. He went to an extremely strict, and if you ask me, strange church. And one of the things that the kids that went to that church were not allowed to participate in sports. Don't ask me why. But I think normally he would have had, the other jocks would have been his friends. But as it was, since he couldn't be on any of the teams, he had two friends. He had Johnson. Johnson was probably the nicest of the three of us. Maybe the smartest, certainly the one with the best judgment, the one our mothers always thought, maybe if Johnson was around, we wouldn't get in trouble. And me, kind of what am I going to say? I was a goofy nerd, bookworm kind of kid. The three of us were like the Three Musketeers. I think we even called ourselves that, the Three Musketeers. We were inseparable from the time we were in 7th grade and 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and here we were seniors in high school. Ooh, the complication in the story. We all developed a crush on the same girl. This is not really the girl, but she was well on her way to being a valedictorian. And I don't know why, but all three of us had a crush on her. I went out with her, and my friend Jack went out with her. And Johnson, I think maybe he had the biggest crush of all of us. It was we were approaching the senior prom, the time of year for the senior prom, and I'm a complete nerd, so of course nobody wants to go to the senior prom with me, and I'm sure Jack could have got a date, but his church problem as usual, and there's no way his mom and dad would allow him to go to a dance, and so of course we were staying home, and we thought we got the idea that our friend Johnson, he was going to stay home too, but it turned out secretly Johnson had a date with a valedictorian, and we found about this after prom. We were talking to the valedictorian, and she told us the whole story. She said it was like our friend Johnson had read a pamphlet, how to be a good prom date. He was he opened the door and he knew how to dance, and she said he was a perfect gentleman, and we were kind of disappointed. You mean, what do you mean, perfect gentleman? She says, really? I mean, all we did was drive around all night. You mean after the prom, all you did was drive around? You didn't even park? No, we just kept driving around. In fact, they drove around so much they ran out of gas. This is back when you could buy gas for like 25 cents, and he'd put in another. Didn't have that much money, and he'd put in another gallon or two, and they'd drive some more. And finally, she was digging quarters out of her purse just so they could keep driving. They drove until dawn. And, Jack and I are like, you mean, yeah, but didn't he like take you to a park or, out in the cornfield, and didn't even try to kiss you? Never? And never even tried to kiss her. So the next day we went over to Johnson's house, and hey, Johnson, what'd you do last weekend? You know, it was prom weekend. Did you do anything? Or and he lied. He just lied through his teeth. And he said he spent the whole weekend, he spent that whole night, he said, just watching TV with the family. And you know what I said about the teenager male brain? It's insufficient in lots of ways. And so we, using our insufficient brains, we decided Johnson must be punished. He lied to us. He went out with the valedictorian and didn't tell us about it. And then he didn't even kiss her. And for all of those things, he had to be punished. But we didn't really, well, how are we going to punish him? Well, this is what we came up with. In the backyard, in Johnson's backyard, there was an apple tree. And this was a really great apple tree. It produced ungodly amounts of apples. And these were really, really delicious apples. The whole neighborhood kind of benefited from this apple tree. So that night, we went there and we decided to ruin all their apples. Don't ask me why, but that's the kind of thing you come up with when you have an insufficiently developed brain. And these apples, I mean, every night they'd fall, and the next morning, you know, Johnson and his mom would come out and pick up the apples. And the mom would they'd take them into the house, and we just decided we'd start eating these apples. And so, like a couple of maniacs, Jack and I are eating, and you know, how many apples can you actually eat? So Jack came up with the idea: would you just take one bite out of every apple? And so we tell you, take a bite out of an apple and throw it down, and grab another apple and bite it. And did I mention that these were green apples? We must have ruined in this way, I don't know, 100 or more apples. You know, actions have consequences. Sometimes they have unintended consequences. And then we remembered, you know, Johnson, he didn't even like apples. Oh, the irony. We meant to punish Johnson, and we ended up punishing ourselves. Well, we had a big talk about it. You know, why were we so incompetent? We didn't realize that was all because of our inadequately developed brains. We blamed it on church. I had to go to church, and he went to his crazy church. And Jack felt that we were insufficiently evil as a result. When it came to really doing bad things, you know, punishing people, we just didn't know how to do it. So he enlisted a friend of his, a guy named Muscles, as his nickname anyway. And you know, because he worked out all the time, and I think he kind of wanted to be Mr. America. And we both felt that if anybody that we knew was really kind of evil, it would be Muscles. So we told Muscles the whole story about the valedictorian and the apples and our stomach aches and everything. And he said he would take over, and he came up with a plan. And the first part of that plan was that we should all wear dark clothes, and we should attack Johnson's house in the middle of the night in the darkness. And we thought this was, you know, kind of cool, you know, the three ninjas. So we went there in the night in our black t-shirts and blue jeans, or black jeans, I guess. And you know, it's the same backyard we'd seen 1,000 times, but it's kind of weird at night and in the dark, and you're kind of, you know, crawling into it. And we were actually peeking in the window. I mean, it was kind of like we were, you know, criminals. It was sort of thrilling. It was scary and thrilling to do this sort of thing, even though it was just our friend's house, and there was nothing going on inside the house. His parents were watching TV. I think our friend was upstairs in his bedroom. At least the light was on up there. And but Muscles, he said this was just the beginning of his plan. And he said what we were really going to do, we were going to invade the garage. There were two cars. There was the mom's car and the dad's car. Though the mom's car basically was kind of like Johnson's car, because he always got to drive it. And there was a side door to the garage, and Muscles had scoped all this out, and the side door was never locked. And so we, you know, in the dark, we, you know, slowly opened up that door and got into the garage. And Muscles had gone to the trouble of going to a hardware store, and he had bought 3 of these things. They're called tire deflation devices. And what you do with one of these things is you just stick it into the tire stem of a car tire, and you twist it, and it opens up the stem valve, and air begins to come out. And you don't have to sit there and hold it. You can just pull it out, and the valve stem will stay open. The valve will stay open, and the weight of the car will just push down on the tire, and all the air will just come hissing out of the tire until the tire is totally flat. And we didn't just do this to one tire or two tires. We flattened all four tires of both cars. Oh my God, we thought, I mean, we could hardly control our laughter. And then we crawled on our hands and knees out there back into the backyard and ran away. And then we got into, I think Muscles had a car, and he drove us about a mile away. We were terrified we were going to be arrested by cops at any moment. In those days, they had roadside phones, and you could pull off the road. And this is long before cell phones, of course. And Muscles gets on the phone, and he calls up Johnson's house, and Johnson's father answers, and Muscles, hey mister, did you look in your garage? And he goes, yeah, and hung up, and we're just laughing like crazy. And we told a lot of people this story about the valedictorian and Johnson and lying, and how he never kissed the girl, and the apples and the tires, and it was a big joke. That was really the end of our friendship, the Three Musketeers. We had been friends since 7th grade, but that episode was really, I never realized that was going to happen, but that is what happened. I meant to just kind of play a crazy joke, and really I lost one of my two best friends in the world. Some years later, I wrote an amends letter, to Johnson. He had moved away, and I had moved away. Jack had moved away, but I found out Johnson's address, and I sent him a letter, but he never did write back. The years went by. It was a 10-year high school reunion. We were all 28 years old. When you're 28 years old, you still think you're cool, or at least you're still trying to be cool. And you get very nostalgic, and I started telling people the story about the tires and everything. Except now, I'll explain that I kind of felt guilty, and I wished I could, see Johnson again. And somebody said maybe he was at the party, and all of a sudden Jack came up. Jack was, and he said, is Johnson here? Is he here? Is his car here? And well, you can guess what happened. Sometimes I think maybe men never grow complete brains.